solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Long throw, goalkeeper's come, hasn't got there. Harry Kewell, and then poked home by Tim Cahill. Australia have done it. 6 minutes to go, and it's a landmark moment for Australian football. Tim Cahill has scored the nation's first ever World Cup Finals goal.
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Pickett, she lays it off Teresa Polias. It's an absolute peach. Is driving. What a hit from Bulleen! Wow! And Sam Kerr has a hat-trick.
And welcome back to Radio Dub. Another edition, another short, sharp edition of Radio Dub. 30 minutes, we're in, we're out. We get through the topics. I appreciate it, I respect it. You know what? I subbed in Lachie. It was good.
But not good enough.
It was good. It was good. And I said, you know what? Sometimes they say three's a crowd, but I don't believe three's a crowd. So we've subbed in Oscar. You've heard him, man of mystery. Oscar, I'm just saying, you're a man of mystery on Radio Dub. We haven't had you before, I don't think. Or maybe once.
No,
you went once.
You know what I feel like this is? You know when a manager is like under threat for their job and so the director of football doesn't sack the manager but like appoints some sort of overseer, advisor type figure who everyone knows is eventually going to replace the manager who's under the pump.
Are you trying to say
that's how I feel like right now? I feel like Oscar's coming in.
Are you handing your resignation?
No. I'm saying that you have installed an extra person into the fold who might be this sort of advisor figure, and now me, the under fire head coach or assistant coach in this case, is I'm going to be sacked in the morning.
Just not convinced that your vision for the program is aligned with the club's
Lachie,
values.
thanks for the mememories, but it's time to go.
You know, I've looked at resumes, and the resumes are holding up. You know, but I'm
not sure about that.
They're holding up, but you know what? I might suddenly lose them and say, oh, "Sorry, I never got your resume. You got to go." We'll see.
For someone you've already employed. Interesting strategy.
It is, but you know, it's how it works. But you know what? Let's get to the weekend's round of fixtures. It was an interesting round of football. I think we got our fixtures. We altered on one of them from last week, but I can't remember which one. But we'll start with the game you commentated, Oscar. Box Hill United versus Bayside. 3-0 to Box Hill. I think we all expected Box Hill to go comfortably the winners. I think they've won all 3 of their fixtures this season against Bayside?
Something like that.
Yeah, I believe so. Because I commentated the last one. Look at this.
What a world.
So we know at least 2.
At least 2.
They drew the first one 2-2.
2-2, yeah. Okay, who cares?
And at most 2.
So, Oscar, take us through that game. What did you think?
Yeah, well, it was actually a pretty decent contest. I say actually in the sense that I've been quite impressed with Bayside, particularly since Luis Faritas has come in. I think they look much more organised. They look like they have a game plan much more often, and they're much closer to executing it. And they did for about an hour on Friday night. They really made it difficult for Box Hill. It wasn't the kind of game where Box Hill were peppering the goal and you felt like it was only a matter of time. They really made it quite difficult for the home side to generate opportunities. But that eventually changed because Box Hill has Sophia Sakalis, and when you have a player of that quality that's kind of head and shoulders above most of the other players in the division, let alone the match, that kind of prove to be the decisive factor.
Yeah, I think we spoke about it last week. For me, that Box Hill midfield, I find it really impressive, and they stand out. I think they just got some weak parts, some other parts of the field that just aren't as strong enough and sometimes fail to perform in big games. But I guess Bayside, for them, against Bayside this year, they've always seemed to show up besides the first game. But Sophia Sakalis, yet again, I think she was involved in all 3 goals, scored the first 2 and then assisted the third one. I don't know what more to say about that player. She's been phenomenal.
Yeah, well, I think nothing exemplifies the strength of that Box Hill midfield more than the opening goal. I mean, how well worked that was. Just a sequence of brilliant passes before Sophia Sakalis' eventual finish. I mean, the reverse pass from Candela Ferreira-Bass on the edge of the penalty box to play it to Yosefsky, who eventually crosses it in for the opening goal. It's just elite. It's just absolutely top-level stuff. And, yeah, they're a bit of a weird one, aren't they, Box Hill? Because I think they are still a chance of sneaking into that, final space in the top 4. But I would say that they haven't quite hit the heights that I think many people hoped when they saw their roster at the start of the season. I just wonder if maybe, as much as I do rate Sophia Sakalis as a player, if maybe a focal point, a real sort of presence who can lead that. Because Sophia Sakalis is not necessarily an out-and-out striker. She is probably more suited as an attacking midfielder, but she's kind of had to, be involved in that sort of pointy end of the formation.
Yeah.
I just think if maybe someone who's more naturally suited to that role is an area in which that Box Hill have lacked this season, because there's decent defenders there. Erin Hudson is a goalkeeper that I rate really highly. It's not a million miles away from a really competitive squad.
I think they'll look back on this season and probably be disappointed with the way the season has unfolded, because they are a better team than their results have shown. And I think sometimes they have lapses, like really big lapses in games, and then they have moments where they're like really, really special. But there's no real consistent football from them that has allowed them to catch up to the likes of Alamein and even FV Emerging, who are probably more consistent on a week-by-week basis. You kind of know what you're going to get from them. They might just not be strong enough by the end of the game. Box Hill have just kind of faded in a lot of games and have dwindled to be 7th on the table.
Yeah, and I mean, as Lachie was saying, in the sense that they have a strong roster and there are several really high quality players, and I think that the spine of that team, I know we were talking about up top and having that presence who can really pull it all together. We've seen Erin Keat tried out in that central striker role to kind of support Sophia Sakalis.
Well, there was always going to be a cap on how long they actually had her for. Of course, she's back in the US playing for Monroe, the college over there. So that was always going to be, it's nice to have her, and they looked better for having her, but she's gone and they haven't really got a replacement.
Well, yeah, I think I was just going to make a broader point that the spine, though, I think through the middle Box Hill is quite strong. I mean, if you've got Tegan Allen at the back, who is obviously so composed and looks so impressive for me on a week-by-week basis, and then you spoke about the midfield, obviously, last week, so that they've got kind of, I think what we're all kind of saying is they've got the foundations, the building blocks of a really good team. And it's been good to see Jorge Leon trying out some of the kind of younger players over the last few weeks. I mean, on the weekend, it was Emily Mackey and Sarah Petkaris both playing on the left-hand side in the left back and the left midfield, left wing position. So, they're trying to find, I guess, that extra gear, that extra level of quality that they up to this point of the season haven't quite had.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. And what about Bayside? For them, I'm kind of just looking for them to score, because I think that was a really big problem for them. They struggled terribly to score goals, and even when they were competitive, you can't win football games if you're not scoring. How did you see them? Obviously, you said that they were strong for about the first hour of the game. How have you seen them so far?
Yeah, they were strong in a out-of-possession defensive sense. I think that, and this isn't surprising to say that they still are lacking something up top, or quite a lot of creativity, really. I'm not really sure who's meant to be generating the opportunities. Of course, there is Julia Budiongo, who's up there and has proven herself to be a good enough quality striker. I think she scored 6 goals this season, plus the 2 assists, which, and I worked this out for the commentary, was Bayside have scored 14 goals in the league as a whole this season. So she's been directly involved in 8 of those goals. So you can see how reliant they are on Budiongo for any of the goals that they're scoring or creating. But it's such a hard gig for her to play in that role where she gets so few opportunities in such little time on or near the ball. So it's the players around her I don't think are... I don't want to blame the players as opposed to the system, which basically relies on her being up there and holding the ball up and creating something once or twice a half when she gets the ball.
Well, yeah, she's one of, I think, 6 players who are tied for equal second on 6 goals. I think Yosefsky and now Sakalis are both in that list. I'd be interested to get your thoughts because to help settle a kind of debate that Pokuah and I were having last week about Julia Budiongo. She has that feel of a player who is maybe capable of, I mean, we've seen her at South Melbourne before, but capable of perhaps going to a side higher up the table next season and having a bit of an impact. Given what we've talking about, spoke about rather, the deficiencies of Box Hill, the lack of a real out-and-out presence in that 9 position, is Budiongo maybe, because I think this is maybe what we were proposing last week, is Budiongo maybe someone who you look at, particularly given you've had the chance to see her play directly against Box Hill, who might be a fit?
It's a really... Well, based on what we've described so far, it seems like a dream match kind of thing, like that. Not like a dream combination. I don't mean
what's with you two's grammar today? Come on, guys. Let's get on with it. Come on, guys.
No, I think that could be a very good move. I do. I think for both parties. I feel like there's only so many seasons you can take as Budiongo of playing that role in that isolated position. And so that would be a step up for her. And I think that she could really pull together lots of what we see from Box Hill and kind of make it a more finished product.
And sorry, Pokuah, just quickly, what of Anaï Yosefsky as well? Because I know there are a few people who maybe are detractors of her in this competition, that she's maybe a bit too sort of pace and power reliant, and that she fits into Box Hill, but might not be a player who can necessarily reach a level sort of higher or more prominent than that. But I've got to say, every time I've watched her this season, she's been really, really impressive, and she does now have 6 goals to her name for the season. What do you make of the season that she's had?
I completely understand a criticism which says that she is pace and power, that is her game and that's what she does, and I think there is truth to that. But I'm also probably not as critical of players who are just that is their game. I think that gets you a long way, and that can be really effective. And we've seen that with Yosefsky as a key example of someone who can be really effective, even though that maybe has a ceiling.
I think that is like the core foundation of her playing style. But I do think there are glimpses of other things in her play, and like I think she can link up well with others. And I don't think that the criticisms are, they're warranted, but also you've got to take it on the other side that she actually does provide a lot for this Box Hill side that has some skills that some other players on Box Hill don't provide them. So,
I think also the way that Box Hill play facilitates Yosefsky playing in that kind of pacey manner in particular, just because if you don't have that big target up top, you're kind of relying on Sophia Sakalis dropping deep or Enkate being there who aren't kind of who aren't giving you this structure at the top of the pyramid or at the top of the formation. And so that means that there is often kind of a swarm of players running towards the goal at one time. And we saw on the weekend or on Friday night how often Yosefsky was in dangerous positions with players in the box.
Now, I feel like we need to jump up. I said quick 30-minute show, we want to get to the points. Another 3 seems to be the magic number of the weekend because Heidelberg beat FV Emerging 3-0 again. Why did I say again? I don't know why I said again.
Well, I mean, last time they played each other, FV Emerging actually won. Sorry, I just got distracted because I was looking at the Sports TG page, and just to see so many 3-0 results, just kind of looks like there's been a weekend of forfeits. Like I'm looking at a State League 4 kind of Sports TG, and just really tough weekend, like 3-0 losses across the board. It's weird that you have them at that high volume, but they're all legitimate.
They are all legitimate, and Heidelberg, I think, as we predicted, came out 3-0 victors against FV. FV had a strong weekend last weekend, beating Calder, and you know what? Sometimes the highs can stay, and sometimes the highs, they say bye-bye. Only one little time. But Heidelberg Lachie trying to keep that first place. They're back on top, or they're back on top.
They're 1 point ahead. Of course, Calder have the game in hand against Box Hill United, which you would expect them to win. You would expect them to win.
You were more confident last week. You were saying you were very sure.
Well, you would. I'm trying to give Box Hill a window here because they've got their own stuff to play for. Obviously, they play out. We'll talk about it later, but they play Alamein next week. True. They get a win in that. They're 1 point behind the top four. Then you've got that game in hand against Calder. If you sneak a draw there, then potentially you're in the four. But yeah, Heidelberg, I've got to say, somewhat surprisingly, I guess, given their form, 5 wins on the bounce going into this game, didn't have it all their own way in the first half in particular. We saw FV Emerging create quite a few good chances. Caitlin Carriage had quite a good chance, I think, down to the left of the keeper inside the opening 30 minutes. And yeah, that has been a bit of a continuing trend, unfortunately, for Caitlin Carriage this season. She's a player who I really do rate. I think she's a really intelligent player. I know Pokuah and I don't exactly agree.
Oh, I think she's good. I think there is still a lot to develop in her game. That she's quite a raw talent. There's the way I perceive her.
Yes. But I think her off-the-ball intelligence, the position she gets herself into, the amount of chances that her run-making ability and that positioning, as I've said, allows her to have, is a really, really positive sign for a player who is, let's not forget, still under the age of 18. So if she can just complement, the amount of chances that she gets with a few more into the back of the net, that will be a big thing for her. But she just has a lot of those opportunities where she takes up a great position, she gets a ball in a goal-scoring area, and unfortunately can't find the finish. But yeah, it was a competitive first half, not so in the second. It was a pretty handy brace from Rebecca Burrows in this game. Sorry, Emily Roach.
Whoa.
Emily Roach.
Oh, guys.
I'm just thinking
What's going on today?
thinking of Rebecca Burrows because she's made that move to Canberra. It was quite a brilliant brace from Emily Roach. Obviously, the first goal a tap in, but set up by some great work down the right hand side from Mia Giorgio, and then the goal as well was just a bender.
I will say about my Caitlin Carriage thing. I think that when she was playing for City in the A-League Women's season, yep, I wasn't probably. I think the stock that I had for her was very, very low at the time, and I think seeing her play for FV Emerging, it is definitely my standing of her. I think it's improved. I think she's a lot better than watching her against the A-League Women's. Obviously, she's under 18, so that's easily expected. But I think her future looks bright. I think there's just a few things that she needs to work on. She needs to be a little bit stronger when she is holding onto the ball to try and hold the ball up. That's something that I think she really needs to work on in the off-season.
I think that the Caitlin Carriage in the A-League Women's thing, I think what you're saying is absolutely right in the sense that, that wasn't, I don't think that was really expected for her to particularly have a huge impact, but more so as a learning experience and to see what elements of her game need the most work. I think that was the point of the exercise, and I think we understood that. And I think, as you say, physically she wasn't up to the same level as the rest of the competition. Whereas at the NPLW level, it's still a very high level, and still at times she does look outdone in the physical, considering the physicality of it all. But yes, she's much more equipped to deal with that level of football, and we've seen that at times throughout the season with FV Emerging.
Yeah, and FV Emerging, who do they play next up? They have...
I'm not 100% sure, but while you're running through the Sports TG page to find that out, I do want to bring up something that I mentioned right before we went to air.
South Melbourne.
No, not about South Melbourne.
No,
they play South Melbourne next. I was like, that's unrelated to South Melbourne, actually. As a serious non sequitur. About Heidelberg is that... their next game, I need you to run the numbers again, Pokuah, but they have got 4 games left to play this season.
Not about Calder Heidelberg here.
Thank you. They've got 4 games left to play this season. They have not had a single draw this year. Calder, the next game, you would say is probably the most likely of the games they've got left to end in a draw, but I'm not sure. Has that ever happened before? I don't know. I might have to ask Tony Pasolia, the Football Victoria historian, to see if there's ever been I feel like maybe Calder would have had a season or two where perhaps they've just gone through a whole year without registering a draw and just winning every game. Yeah. But other than that, I feel like that would be rare. So maybe on the verge of some Victorian footballing history here.
I'm going to be honest. NPLW history, I don't look in my direction for that. So maybe Oscar, do you remember anything?
Well, what I would say is that I'm sure it's more likely to be a once-off event if they're a team that doesn't finish like top or bottom and also doesn't get a draw throughout their season, because I feel like we can exclude a couple of, like there could be some outliers of teams that lost nearly everything or won nearly everything. But if they could not win the league and yet draw. Sorry,
not draw. This is not a.
We are having an absolute stinker today. We'll be better. We'll be better next week. It's fine. It's fine.
Playing wrong. No, I think the fact that Heidelberg are yet to draw, I think speaks to the mentality that John Clemente instills in his side. I think from watching their games, they're not particularly interested in well, obviously they're not interested in coming away with the draw. They're kind of all or nothing. It's we believe we can win every game, and so we go out to win every game, and frankly we'd rather lose than not throw everything at winning, at getting all 3 points.
Yeah, well, that was sort of what he said after the semi-final result in the Nike FC Cup against South Melbourne. He was sort of like, I would rather, exactly as you said, would rather leave it all out there on the park and register a loss, as they did in that game against South, than settle. Obviously, the cup competition, not an area in which you can settle for a draw, but it is that all or nothing mentality that he does bring into the side.
I do love that all or nothing saying. But I feel like the only two teams this weekend who didn't get the memo there was 3-0 or nothing was South Melbourne and Alamein, who came to a 2-2 draw. You know what? South Melbourne have been on a good run as of late after that Nike FC Cup win against Heidelberg, and Alamein they've been consistent throughout the majority of the season, and a 2-2 draw seems fair based on the recent track record of both teams.
I feel like Alamein have just really flown under the radar this season, just because they've been consistently kind of, middle of the road in the actual amount of teams in the competition. Like they have been 4th or 5th most of the time, but still in the finals places. But a lot of the focus has sort of been at the polar ends of the table. Obviously, the race for the top between, initially Bulleen, Calder, Heidelberg, now maybe mainly just Calder and Heidelberg. And also down the bottom when South Melbourne had such a poor run to start the season. So much focus has been on the polar ends that not a lot of attention has been paid to Alamein, just sort of coasting along in these final spots. But a bit of a disappointing result though, in the way in which it happened at Lakeside.
I think Alamein would probably be disappointed that they couldn't hold on to that 2-1 victory, because it was very late, last minute, 90th minute, I believe,
that's right,
that South Melbourne scored that goal by, if I can see it,
Karina Tolias.
Karina Tolias.
Thank you very much.
Not the number 27, Karina Tolias.
But I've had a penalty in this game. What were your thoughts on that penalty? A little bit controversial?
Yeah, so it was against Jana Lawson, wasn't it? On the handling the ball deemed to have occurred on the goal line. I was saying this to you before Pokuah off air. Was it a red card? It felt a bit harsh in the sense that I don't think it was deliberate by any means. I felt like that was a mistimed attempt to get her body behind the ball, which ended up with her arm. She just couldn't quite get across all the way. So I did feel it was unfortunate. I'm not saying it wasn't a penalty, and it may well have indeed been a red card, but it felt quite unlucky for Jana Lawson, although the referee was decisive. They were sure.
I will say I think it was quite an unlucky red card, because I don't think it was. I think it kind of glanced off her right arm, I believe, and she was just kind of unlucky to be in that place. But kind of needed to be in that place, otherwise there was going to be a goal anyway.
See, I think it's a tough one. I think that her movement is a little bit deceptive, in the sense that a lot of the time with an intentional handball, especially those ones that do kind of look instinctive in the moment, not really thinking about it too much, the person who's committing the offence is just moving their arm. Whereas in this case, Jana Lawson sort of moves her whole body across while her arm is sort of, bent at the elbow facing upwards, out and away from her body. I do think the fact that she's moving her whole sort of frame maybe disguises the fact that she is, for all intents and purposes, doing that motion in an effort to create a stoppage of the ball against her arm. I think maybe that's
So do you think she deliberately used her arm to stop him? Okay.
I do think so. I don't think she necessarily...
So much harsher than the rest of us.
I don't think she... Well, I just wonder if maybe the motion in which it happened, because yes, she's also coming across to just sort of defend the goal line at the tighter angle against, I think, Sydney Allen.
Yeah, it was Sydney Allen.
I think the hand also, I think it's well disguised, but I think the referee, in my view, did a good job to pick it out and give a red card. But I don't even want to focus too much on the actual giving of the penalty itself. That is much less interesting to me than what actually happens in the build-up to the concession of the penalty, which is a bit of a out of bounds or not, a Schrodinger's goal kick kind of moment, because it was a Caitlin Storey who looped the ball back in before the penalty was eventually called, but it was a tight angle.
Me and you, when we watched it, our instinct was like, is that ball gone out? Oscar, you thought it looked like it was still in, but I thought that ball clearly had crossed over that line and it had been played back in.
And the last time you showed me, it was the first time I was almost convinced, but I certainly don't think that we had a good enough view to make a fair call. I just don't believe that we're able to assess that reasonably.
I think it's suspect, but I think the decision, ultimately the person who made the decision, which is the lines person, in this case would have been in a better position than us, because
it's such a cop-out answer, but it's true.
No, because the view at Lakeside, the camera position is quite far away from the pitch. We're obviously seeing the incident through a sea of bodies in a penalty box. And also the other element that makes it really difficult, particularly for us to judge, without even bringing up the angles, is the fact that the ball's actually in the air when it's met by the foot of Caitlin Storey to recycle the cross back in. We would have a more definitive or more appropriate look if it was against the ground and we can clearly see the line. But at that angle, when the ball's in mid-air, you can't really be definitive. And I do think I'm going to express my concerns about the legitimacy of what happened thereafter, but choosing to park that to one side and trust the assistant referee here.
I'm gonna go contrary to everyone. I think it was out. Like, it just looked like the shadow of the ball looked like it's crossed over the line, and I feel like it's just unlucky all the way through.
The one other thing I would add is that none of the South players went up, or no one appealed for the ball having gone out of play, which I feel like you'd expect to see from all the players crowded around the box had it done so.
I was wrong, guys. I was wrong. You know what? I was wrong. You know what?
In this argument, you're not necessarily wrong, because none of us from our viewing position can be definitive about it. But historically, yes, you are wrong, because it wasn't a goal kick.
Should have been a goal kick.
So you're not totally wrong.
Historically, you're just wrong about
it. You're just partially wrong. No.
just slightly wrong. And the final game of the weekend, which also not the weekend actually, last night, where we saw FC Bulleen Lions versus Calder. Calder coming out 3-0 victors, and FC Bulleen kind of put up a good fight, and they were competitive through most of the game, but Calder obviously showed their class and came out 3-0 victors. Oscar, thoughts?
It was kind of the trend across the weekend in all of the 3-0 games, wasn't it? The first half was tight and even and no one could really get ahead, but then the better team in all three games just eventually had that extra gear that they went to. And I mean, it's a story that we've read a few times from Calder so far this season, seen from Calder a few times this season, just getting ahead, and then at that point it puts so much pressure on the opposition because we know how defensively strong Calder are, and that opens up space behind, which they're very good at exploiting, and that's what we saw on Monday as well.
I mean, sometimes these quality sides at the top end of the table can just create something out of very little to break a game wide open. We kind of saw that for the opening goal for Heidelberg with that brilliant run down the right-hand side. I don't actually think it was Mia Georgie. I'm not 100% sure.
I think it was Grace Jarlow.
Grace Jarlow. Yeah. Yes, no, it was Grace Jarlow. Yeah. You're right. To set up Emily Roach. Like, that's just a amazing, brilliant run and dribble to set up a tap-in. And in a similar sort of way, I thought the cross from Raquel Duralis for Alex Sinclair's opener was brilliant. She put it was a perfectly placed cross in the sense that she, it wasn't hit super hard, it wasn't hit with whip or anything like that, but the actual placement, like where the ball was supposed to start dropping, it was right in between the two defenders. And as good of a ball in as it was, the credit also has to go to Alex Sinclair, because you kind of see her make the run towards the front post and then is clearly judging the ball in flight as it comes towards the penalty box, takes that little step, which has pushed one defender away from her, and gets in that gap. And she's not the tallest player, but she didn't need to be, because her movement in the box was so good that she was able to create an open look for herself off what was, an inviting cross. And those are the kind of moments that are decisive, that change games, especially when you're a side that can break in the way Calder does. Once you've got the 1-0 lead, often you've got the defence that they do, you don't need much more.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. And she looked so calm as that ball came in, and the finish was just, the goalkeeper just almost just stopped. It just as if she just stopped, as if
rooted to her spot.
So she was like, what just happened? I feel like she's taken a nap for 2 seconds, and it's just in the back of the net. But there was also another penalty in this game. Can we remember? I can't. My brain's faded. And who got the yellow card for it?
I was Alana Byrne.
Alana Byrne. Thank you. That one was almost as unlucky as that first one we saw in the South Melbourne game, and its ball just kind of, as Alex Sinclair was playing it forward, it just kind of ricocheted off the both of them, and it just hit her in the arm. And I thought it was definitely a penalty, but it was quite an unlucky penalty, because you just find yourselves in that spot there.
Yeah, I think it's obviously such a long-term layered debate that we have in this sport about the handball rule, and that's I think that's part of the reason that we tried to implement some more protective measures for defenders, because in that instance, there's not much that you can do really. There was no intention in that. It was just an incident of where the ball was and how it happened to ricochet into the defender's arm. But I think we're all in agreement that it probably was a penalty. The arm was apart from the body. It clearly hit it. That affected where it was going. So I think we have some consensus on that, even if it were harsh.
Yeah. Well, it is one of those ones. Do I feel good about the fact that it's a penalty? Do I feel sorry for Alana Byrne for having been the player who conceded it, made the game 2-0 through very little fault of her own? Yeah, absolutely I do. But do I think it's the wrong call as a result of those things? No. And with the handball being the way that it is now, that interpretation where it sort of doesn't consider context in the same way, or intent in the same way that it used to, that's just the sort of thing that's going to happen. And Alana Byrne is just the unfortunate recipient of that eventuality this time around.
And I might add, unlucky deflections are a part of football all over the pitch. That's the thing that happens in every game all the time. So it doesn't seem unreasonable that we're consistent with that if you get an unlucky deflection, well, that's something you have to cop in at some point in this game, in this sport.
Yeah, it's one of those just to take it to really
macro level.
Yeah, it is just one of those strange things about football, isn't it? That all these coaches in the NPLW would be mostly obsessed with, having their team, particularly the teams at the top end of the table, having their team perform in a different way, taking a certain tactical approach, really believing that this is the best way to win games of football. And yet these random elements of chance could so often just make things completely irrelevant. I don't know if that was a much more profound statement in my head than it was while I was saying it, but it really is
it's like a bounce out at the match play, isn't it? It's just unfortunate.
It's I don't know. It's funny because it frustrates you as a coach, as a watcher, as a supporter when one of these random you're like, we would have won if this random thing didn't. Exactly. It's part of the fun.
It is part of the fun, and part of the fun is we've got 4 more rounds left of the 4, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is 4. But it just reminded me of a question that I wanted to put to you that I haven't mentioned before. So it is a question without notice. Because we are because we've seen the vast majority of the season, obviously we'll have a Player of the Season award to be giving out. Is there? There is kind of a shootout going for the golden boot over at Heidelberg. Could you make a case that it's a shootout for the Player of the Season award as well? I don't know. Is there someone with just 4 games left to go, which I guess is enough time to decide it in one direction, who stands out as a potential Player of the Year in the NPLW?
So to me, it's kind of a basic answer to say someone who's right at the top of the golden boot. But for me, it's not a contest between Danielle Wise and Steph Galea. For me, Steph Galea has, for me, she would probably deserve to win that accolade in my mind, because for me the growth and the progress that we've seen at Heidelberg in this season is remarkable, and we shouldn't discount that and how different things are now than what they were before. And Steph Galea does more than just score goals. She's so pivotal to how Heidelberg play so often in the build-up.
I actually think I'm gonna agree with Oscar, and the reason is, and it's sort of what Oscar is getting at there. Yes, more versatile than
Getting at, okay.
Well, said.
Articulate for me. Go ahead.
No, but if you had the option or a gun to your head kind of option here of taking Danielle Wise out
don't
of
promote guns on FNR, by the way. I just want.
No, but I'm just saying it's a figure of speech. I'm not actually advocating the use of a gun or of putting it towards someone's forehead. That is more often than not, in fact, almost always, maybe even always, a bad idea.
More often than not.
I guess it's context dependent. If you're putting a gun to the head of a murderer, well then maybe it's a good. Okay, I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop now. But anyway, if you had to take a player out of this Heidelberg team to do the least damage, to destabilize it as little as possible, you would take out Danielle Wise. You would take out Danielle Wise because, yes, she's scoring goals for fun, but she does have, like, she is not a player who can do it all herself. And she has had games this season where beyond the actual scoring of goals and being the, end point on a team maneuver, she isn't always doing that much else.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that about Steph Galea.
No, Steph Galea is phenomenal, and I think you guys are right. I just, when the first player that comes to your head, that is like, it's just like instinct. And Danielle Wise was the first player to come to my mind. But listening to you guys speak about it, you are right. Steph Galea has had a phenomenal season, and she is very important to that Heidelberg team, if not the most important player. So I will concede what my first instinctual reaction was, but I think they've both had such tremendous seasons, and Heidelberg should be very,
I'm trying to think.
Are we being unkind to anyone at Calder, for example?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think who else is in. I do feel as though perhaps Calder are a victim of their own success, because across, and Mark Torcaso, when we spoke to him, Pokuah said this, he was so pleased with how evenly the load has been spread in terms of attacking quality amongst the team. I think maybe Alana Churn perhaps is someone who could maybe stand out because she has been part of, we're talking about goal scoring.
Yeah, I was going to
denial of goal scoring opportunities herself. Julia Sardo have been a really big part of that, and Churn's also chipped in with a goal or two, particularly that long range bomb we saw her score against FV emerging earlier this season. So maybe she's someone who's also in the conversation, perhaps someone who really has stood out in one of the lesser lights. I probably haven't seen enough of her to judge this year, but every time I've seen Sydney Allen play this year, she's been really, really impressive. I don't think Player of the Year impressive necessarily, but I do think she's had a really, really good season in new colours from what I've seen.
Yeah, I think in terms of you were talking about the growth of a player this season, it's probably in one of those lesser teams. I think Sydney Allen is my runaway with it, because she's been phenomenal, and every time I see her play, she's active on the ball and off the ball as well, and I think that's something that has really helped her side throughout the year.
Yeah, and I think my biggest gripe with these kinds of conversations is that we do just perhaps naturally, instinctively put less weight on defensive acts than we do at attacking acts. And so a team like Calder, whose success has been built on a rock-solid defence, because fundamentally defence is a more team-oriented thing than attack. Of course, you do need a good team to attack effectively, but a lot of that can come from individuals who are individually creative and brilliant, whereas a defence... But I would say an attack can carry people who aren't contributing as much, whereas a defence is so much more of a shared burden, so much of a team effort. So it's kind of, we don't give all the time, I think, the requisite credit to defenders, or even goalkeepers, if I can add.
You know what? These conversations, they could go on forever. You know what? People could bring up new points, and we'd be stuck here for a while.
They could do that.
They could do that. Yeah. They could do that.
Maybe they have strong thoughts about how often, of 100 times, is it a good idea to put a gun to someone's head? I don't know. Maybe that's their thoughts.
I think if you change to a water pistol, if you're playing a game with a water pistol,
I feel like you can make an argument that more often than not, it's a good idea to put a water pistol to someone's head.
Yeah, you might get them out. I don't know how water pistol games work. I don't like.
Well, I just spray someone with a water pistol.
I don't really.
I'd actually rather not put it to the head because then you're not getting as much sort of a water stream out of the end of the gun. Then it's kind of just, dribbling against the side of their head, which is, if anything, quite disappointing.
Really sad.
Yeah, that's just...
Lachie would be the worst.
So no, I would actually advocate against putting a water pistol to someone's head.
Lachie would have been
30 centimeters from the head, great idea.
Annoying to play Nerf wars with or something because Lachie would just be
Again, another situation where I would not put the gun against someone's head because no chance for the air to propel the dart out from the gun.
FNR does Nerf wars.
I'm not saying no.
There's nothing else I feel like we could add to this show. Oscar, Lachie, thank you.
We're not doing the games. We're not predicting the games.
I just feel like we've gone to Nerf wars. I don't know where we can go from
No. We have to play the Russian roulette that is trying to predict the weekend's fixtures, even if it is quick fire. Okay, that one was unintentional. Was unintentional.
Okay, the first game of this weekend on Saturday.
That's a huge game.
Yeah, at 3 p.m. at Dorothy Laver West Reserve. That's a mouthful right there. Alamein FC versus Box Hill United, which I think is going to be a really interesting game. Oscar, you are the guest today. What's your prediction for next week's?
Alamein 3-1.
Ooh, that's good.
Wow.
Wow, that's
a big prediction.
That is very big.
I'm going for it.
I like that for you, man.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to go... Oh, I don't want to go 2-2 draw. It might be too triggering for Alamein given the season they've had. But I will go 2-2 draw.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if Box Hill could spring an upset potentially just because of what's at stake for them if they can win this game. But nah, it's probably going to be a draw or an Alamein win, but I'll say draw.
You know what? I'm going to go against the panel just for vibes today. I'm going to go Box Hill 2, Alamein 1.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Close though, very close game. Then we head up onto same 3 p.m. kickoff at Keilor Park Recreation Reserve. We have Calder United versus Heidelberg United, which will be the biggest game of the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good match week, to be perfectly honest with you.
It's really important for if Heidelberg win, that's 4 points ahead of Calder.
2, because they're 1 behind now, but they'll have the game in hand. So if they win that, they can make it 5 points.
Look at me failing math. It's really
the title, the Premier's play would be...
You guys struggled with English. I struggled with math. How did we get through year 12?
Yeah, the Premiership would be wrapped up if they won this and the game in hand, pretty much.
So, Lachie, to you, what Heidelberg, Calder? What are your thoughts?
I think Calder have got to win this. Have got to win this game. I'm going to say 2-1, and the reason I'm saying that is twofold. Part of it is I think it is impossible to argue that Calder are not, even if Heidelberg do end up, finishing as the top team at the end of the season. Premiership-wise, not grand final necessarily, that's a different thing. Even if they do, I still think it's almost impossible to argue that Calder are not the best side in this competition. Yeah, no. The numbers are hard to lie with, or hard to... What am I trying to say here? Hard to argue against. The numbers are hard to argue against. The goals scored, goals conceded, they're just streets ahead of every other team in this competition. And on the other hand, there are some XG stats that I've seen through the Optipacks to suggest that perhaps at times Heidelberg have maybe gotten a bit more of an overperformance in terms of their finishing, particularly with, the 2 best goal scorers in the league than perhaps other teams have done this year. So I think Calder will win. Because they are the best team in the competition. They deserve to win this game and finish atop the NPLW Victoria table. But also the second part of my twofold reason why Calder should win this game is that I want Heidelberg to end the season having not lodged a single draw. And this is probably the game where they'll be most likely to draw. Yeah. So I want Calder to win and I want Heidelberg to end the season with not a single points shared on one of their match days.
Fair enough. Oscar?
I mean, that was a very compelling statistical argument put forward by
Just go with the vibes.
Yeah, I'm going with the vibes because I feel like that's the basis of so much of Heidelberg's success. With the greatest respect, which isn't to take away from what they've achieved, but rather to say that that's one of the positives of how they've gone about it is that there have been very good vibes. So my vibe says Heidelberg get 2 early goals and then Calder claw it back. That was a tongue
Were you
twister.
going crawl or crawl? What word are you going
Well,
for?
it could go either
Claw.
way.
Yeah,
You
claw.
can, I guess you can crawl back to 2-2.
But they claw it back to a 2-2. And then we get the first draw. Calder concede twice. It's like,
Ooh,
it doesn't
that's
make
a good.
sense.
That's a double. Okay, I will go Calder 1-0 win. I'm going to keep a really low-scoring affair and just Heidelberg, hold packed.
Yeah, that is kind of their MO, Calder.
Yeah.
Other team scoring has not really been the go.
And then on Saturday, just half an hour later, 3:30 kickoff between Bayside United and Bulleen Lions at Kingston Heath. I'll start with myself, actually. Why not?
Go for it.
I think that it's going to be Bulleen 5, Bayside 1.
I think we probably could have said our prediction for this game simultaneously, unless Oscar is about to stun me. It was a
4-0 Bayside.
It was a pretty convincing win for FC Bulleen Lions last time. The only sweetener on the prediction I'm going to make is that there's going to be a consolation goal for Bayside, and why not give it to Julia Woodward?
Two consolations. 6-2.
6-2. Ooh, okay. Spicy.
Fascinating.
Spicy, Oscar.
Fascinating.
And then the final game on Sunday at 3 p.m. at Knox Regional Football Centre, which is what a vibe.
Cold and windy.
Yeah.
Cold and windy and great place.
But should be a good game on the artificial turf
FV
on
emerging
Sunday.
South Melbourne. I didn't say that, but
I genuinely, usually when I make predictions, I don't know about you guys, but I always have a gut reaction that is telling me what I think. Without, just with glancing at a fixture, I know, even if it's not based on any logic, I know where my sort of gut, what direction in which it's sending me. But I'm looking at this fixture now, and the gut instinct for this game is just not, it's not there. It is not there. I can barely call which way this one is going to go. So I'll leave you two to it for now.
I think I've got FV emerging just coming out on top. I don't know why. There's not a real, I've got no basis, no facts for this at all. I just think that FV emerging they just do some weird things sometimes. And I know South Melbourne do that, but I don't know, they've been having a good time lately. So I'll go 3-2 FV emerging.
Interesting. Because I think part of the challenge is FV emerging in particular are so hard to predict.
Yeah.
They're so, when you've got such a, of course, all the teams are young to an extent, but particularly for FV emerging, and that brings with it inconsistency. So it's really tough, and I think we all share this lack of vibe prediction. I was also thinking 3-2, but I was thinking it would go the way of South.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
Look at that. We've split the predictions down the middle. That's okay.
And after a lengthy period of deliberation, I will go for South Melbourne as well.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I just think that the consistency of their last few weeks, and also of their squad, no Jana Lawson will be a big out.
Good point.
But I do think of an area, if I had to pick an area of the pitch where South Melbourne would be copping red card, missing a player for the game, it would probably be the attack. They've got a few good options there. If they need to, they can also take a player like Franny Iamano, who's been playing in the midfield, and throw her into that front, friend of the show, Francesca Iamano, and throw her into the front line if need be. So I think they've got options there. There's an accidental Jack Harlowism. My apologies. South Melbourne are going to get the win.
Thank you. We've gone Nerf Wars, water pistols, Jack Harlow references. We've done it all. We've poor English, poor maths. We've had a full, complete show, I think. And you know what? I think that's a perfect place to sign off. And thank you to everybody to joining us again for another week of Radio Dub with our special guest Oscar. I don't know, Rutherford. I didn't want to make a mistake there. And Lachie Flannigan. Flannigan? What's his name?
Sure. Yeah, we'll go with that for now.
We'll go
for
with
legal purposes.
For legal purposes, go with Flannigan. And I've been Pokuah Frimpong. And you can always catch up on all the episodes of Radio Dub and all our other shows on wherever you listen, Spotify, Apple Music, I don't really know. Apple Podcasts?
Well, literally any podcast platform is the
even
area in which you can head.
That works. So...
Here he comes!
And into a teammate, Flannery.
The panel is going crazy.
Yeah, the panel is going
and on that bombshell, we might wrap up the show.
Adios, everybody. Bye-bye.